Hey, I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
And I'm Aaron Tomlinson.
And we have an exciting topic for you today.
Yeah.
Very, and it's really subtle. It's subtle, but it's exciting nonetheless because this is something that I think doesn't really get enough traction. It doesn't get enough talk. So, before we get into the subject, Aaron, what's in the glass, man?
So I'm going hard tonight. I got my tumbler with ice and chocolate whiskey.
Damn, I want to be like you when I grew up. I'm doing Glenlivet Founders Reserve, and
Looks
uh,
good.
and and I suspect that I will drink most of this during the show. Just
All
to
right. We'll be about even then.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
this is full. It's got ice in it. It's not the whole, but
yeah.
drinking
I've
half the
got a lot
fifth.
of ice going, but yeah, I think that as the show goes on, it'll get increasingly entertaining.
Yeah, for sure.
So, the subject today. Do you want to introduce the subject, or you want to kick it to me, or because I think this one is kind of like a mutually agreed on, right?
Yeah. Let me kick it off, and then I'll see where you take the conversation. So one of the things that religion does, one of the many things, like if there's one indictment I would have against religion, it's not just the delusions or the false beliefs or false hope and all that stuff. It's that it's so damn dehumanizing,
Mm,
and particularly Judeo-Christian faiths or Western faiths.
yeah,
Throw Islam in there with it.
Abrahamic.
Yeah, Abrahamic faiths. Thank you. God, I'm already like slurring. uh, is it takes your humanity, your human experiences, and vilifies you become
Mm,
vilified just for being human. It's so damn dehumanizing.
yeah.
And one of the ways this manifested in our past lives was in the area of emotion and feeling, right? So, if I won't throw any names out there, but it's kind of this concept that you're three parts, right? Spirit, soul, and body.
Mhm.
And your body, obviously, you can relate to. It hurts, it gets drunk, it has sex, it eats, it does all this stuff, right?
Especially
And
sex.
yeah, we like that part. And so we can relate to that. And then you're told that you have a soul, which is your mind, will, and emotions.
Yep.
And then you have a spirit, which nobody can really relate to. Nobody can really relate to it. This used to bother me back when I was in the thing. So my spirit is holy, my spirit is pure, my spirit is filled with God. I remember one preacher that you'll know well, you'll recognize who it is when I say it. You're 1/3 wall to wall God.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wall to
somebody,
wall Holy Ghost.
yeah, somebody just up the road from me here in Colorado,
Yeah, yeah.
and 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 so how does that work really? Like, how do you connect with your spirit? Now, I'm just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna say the spirit exists, just for the sake of argument, just to
Yeah.
argue with them, right?
Yeah.
But how did you know your spirit without your soul? But yet your soul was also demonized along with your flesh, your body.
Right.
And really, if you want to look at that version of Christianity, it's an exaltation of the mind. And it's an exaltation of language specifically. We believe the word, we speak the right words, all this stuff. We have to think, and we think in words. So our mind has to be renewed. Your mind's totally rotten and corrupt and rotten to the core. So it has to be renewed to the word of God or whatever. So you have to think like the Bible tells you to think. But your emotions, they just go in the dumpster.
Right.
They just go in the dumpster. I'm not moved by what I feel. I'm not moved by what I see. I'm only moved by what I believe. And then this whole thing, you have to discern between what's your spirit and what's your soul. Well, how the hell do you do that without a soul? Because that involves thinking, that involves feeling, even what most people call intuition. Oh, my spirit. I have a check in my spirit. That's a feeling. Um, I have the peace of God leading me. That's an emotion.
Yeah.
But yet we're told that you can't trust those. So I mean, the whole thing is bullshit, obviously, but it carries over. So I read a book years ago called Born Bad, and it
Mm,
took the concept of Augustine's idea of original sin and brought it all the way through Western society, not just Christianity. But one of the influences they talked about, I'm into psychology and counseling, and so that was of interest to me. One of the things they talk about is Sigmund Freud began with the presupposition that you're wrong, that you're broken, that you need to be fixed. And so they tie this back into Augustine, right? They tied this back into this whole pervasive idea in Western society about original sin. And so any of us that spent any time in that Christian movement, we didn't know what to do with our emotions. We thought our emotions were garbage. We thought they were lying to us. We thought we had to deny them. Don't listen to them. Don't be moved by what you feel. But I see this same thing in certain realms in the counseling world as well, particularly something called cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive, meaning your cognitions, your thinking. And by that, they simply mean the left side of the brain. They mean how you're talking to yourself, your self-talk, and your beliefs, your language system. And then behavioral has to do with what you do with your body, right? And yet most people will come to counseling because of emotional issues. And so the idea is, well, if you change the way you think, it's the same thing that they were doing in the Christian world. If you change the way you think, you're going to change the way you feel. But the reality is that most of your emotions and feelings come first. You have this nerve that runs from your brainstem down through your heart and into your intestines. It's called the vagus nerve. It's the biggest nerve in the body. And there are more neurons going up to the brain than there is coming down from the brain. And the reason is because your emotions, if you want to talk about what emotions are at their feelings, emotions, whatever, at their most basic conceptual level, they're hormonal changes that happen in the body. And it's governed by the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic, it's automatic. Your autonomic nervous system governs your digestion. It governs your breathing. It governs your heart rate. All these things that you don't have to think about and that you can't stop. That you can't necessarily stop by just thinking about it. We can hold our breath, but I can't change my heart rate. I can't make it quit beating, thankfully. I can't tell damn, I just gorged and I want to tell my digestive system to shut off so that I don't get all those calories and end up around my waist. You can't control that stuff. But that stuff also controls your endocrine system, and your endocrine system controls a lot of how you feel. So if you're stressed out, you are in a fight or flight response. That's a operation of the autonomic nervous system. So what happens is that your senses pick up on something that's perceived as a threat and runs that information from your body up into your brain. So you're feeling before you're thinking. You're not thinking before you're feeling. Yeah. It's running that stuff up and saying there's a threat out here. Now all of a sudden you've got adrenaline pumping, you got epinephrine pumping, you got cortisol pumping, all this stuff that's there to prepare you for fight or flight. And it shows up as the felt experience of fear or anxiety or panic or those kinds of things, right? Yep. And so even in the psychological world, emotions don't get their they're not dealt with. They're just thrown in the garbage dump, right? Yep. Like it's just about how you think. And by that we mean it's just about how you think verbally. It's about how you think in terms of the left hemisphere of your brain, logic, language, linear thinking, that kind of stuff. And if you can get that sorted out, you can get the rest of it sorted out. And that's just not true because we don't work that way as human beings. So that's number one. And then number two, I find that a lot of people, now granted, I work with a sliver of people that come for counseling. So my, viewpoint is informed by my experience, and my experience is very skewed. I'm sure there's lots of people out there just living their best life, don't even think about counseling. And I don't talk to a lot of those people anymore. Yeah. But I have noticed that most people tend to be really disconnected from their feelings, really disconnected from their emotions, don't know what to do with them, don't know how to process them, don't know what they are, how to work with them. And yet they're giving us information. And so I just thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about this idea of what is this component of our being, this part of our soul, to use the Christian paradigm of humanity, that we just threw in the dumpster, right? That we were taught to ignore and not to listen to. And what might we learn if we start listening to our emotions and feelings, and what value there might be to those? Because at the end of the day, most people make emotional decisions Not necessarily logical decisions. I mean,
Right.
at the end of the day, our emotions factor into our beliefs. They factor into the candidates that we vote for, since we just had an election. They even factor into the kind of car we drive or the kind of house that we live in,
Yeah.
or the kind of clothes that we buy. Did you buy that outfit because logically it made sense to buy that outfit to cover your body, or did you like it because you like how you feel and it feels good to look good, or the food that you eat? I mean, if we only use the left side of our brain to determine we'd all be vegans. We'd all be just eating health food all the time, because logically it's the best thing for us. But we all know there's nothing like a good meal,
Hey,
a
a
good
good steak.
meal. So even our diet decisions are made off of our feelings, and yet that's the part that we seem to neglect the most. So that's how I'll set it up.
Yep, and that's a fantastic setup, and to pick on the guy that's up there in Colorado, he would always say, you need to learn to trust your faith and not your feeler.
Right.
And you're making a really good point, because I'm an atheist, and so I say my life is governed by logic and reason.
Right.
However, I don't disregard the human part. And the human part is an emotional part. And here's the thing, feelings and emotions are two different things, but emotions are largely driven by feelings, right? Because we get sensory input into our five senses from our environment, from our
Right.
encounters, from all of our situations and circumstances. And then that begins to drive chemical and hormonal changes in our bodies that affect how we feel, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And you talked about the vagus nerve, and this was something that I learned before, is that scientists or medical scientists have determined that the makeup of the intestinal tract is very similar to the makeup of the brain.
Yeah.
The folds, the creases, the material, and how it operates, all of that.
Yep.
So gut instinct,
Yep.
that's the activity of the second brain, and
Yep.
that ties into the autonomous part of our bodies that you mentioned. So when they say trust your gut, there's some science to
Right.
that.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I say is that as a human, commit yourself to being fully human. In other words, do not deny yourself the full range of emotions. It's okay to be happy, sad, angry, envious. It's okay, because these are all human emotions. But what happens is, and this is like, I think where religion has kind of mind fucked us collectively, is that religion teaches us to be governed by our emotions instead of our logic, even though they tell us to suppress our logic. Which, if you think about it, that's that's really like it's some very circular reasoning going on there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also very hypocritical, because it's like, okay, we want you to feel God, but we don't want you to feel.
Right.
So I had sent you before we got started this article is, and maybe I'll put this in the chat too, so that everybody can keep up. But this was it has something about feelings versus emotions, and I'm trying to find my cursor here. But basically it says that feelings, both emotional experiences and physical sensations such as hunger or pain, bring about feelings, according to Psychology Today. Feelings are a conscious experience, although not every conscious experience, such as seeing or believing, is a feeling, as explained in the article. And then emotions, it goes on to say that according to Psychology Today, an emotion can only ever be felt through the emotional experiences it gives rise to, even though it might be discovered through its associated thoughts, beliefs, desires, and actions. Emotions are not conscious, but instead manifest in the unconscious mind. This goes back to what you were saying about the autonomic part of our body. Um,
Right.
Manifest in the unconscious mind. These emotions can be brought to the surface of the conscious state through extended psychotherapy. A fundamental difference between feelings and emotions is that feelings are experienced consciously, while emotions manifest either consciously or subconsciously. Some people may spend years or even a lifetime not understanding the depths of their emotions. And so this is what I say. This is my 2 cents on this. Um, that never deny your emotions or your feelings because they're part of your makeup as a human being. However, do not let your emotions govern your logic. In other words, basically, if you want to keep your emotions subordinated to logic most of the time. I say most of the time because we talked about gut instinct just a minute ago. And if I have a hunch, I have a feeling, or
Right.
how we talk about consciousness, right? That our consciousness produces what? An aura, right?
Yep.
Or unseen light. And that unseen light is perceptible by the aura of others. So somebody could be giving off a bad vibe, and
Yep.
you pick that up.
Yep.
And if you're thinking with just logic and reason, you may dismiss
Yep.
the key information that's coming from that aura. So that's my 2 cent rebuttal, or not
Yeah.
rebuttal, but
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the gut, so your second biggest brain, the second biggest section of neurons is in your stomach. Um, and they call it, like you said, they call it the second brain, but it also has like somewhere around 90% of the serotonin. So anybody that's been on an antidepressant or something for anxiety, they take usually a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It's a fancy term to basically say it increases your serotonin in your brain, because serotonin is one of the feel-good chemicals that you get from your endocrine system, basically.
Mhm.
But you've got more serotonin in your stomach than you have in your brain. And so there's been a lot of interesting research about how diet and various different things can impact depression, because it can have a direct impact on your serotonin levels. But the other thing that was interesting that I when I was studying this out a few years ago about the second brain, they call it, in your stomach,
Mhm.
is that talking about that gut instinct, that you are picking up information and your brain is sorting that information out for what the brain thinks is important. And so you can get a gut instinct of danger, or you can get that you pick up um, through sensory perceptions, right? Like your body picks up something from someone else because they're giving off that bad vibe, and your body registers that, and you feel it because of the vagus nerve. Again, it all goes back to the vagus nerve. You feel it, and your information's going up into your brain, the vagus nerve, and but then we'll discount that, right? When in
Yep.
reality, that's probably more accurate information. And so what's really interesting about this second brain is they did lie detector studies. And so what they found out, and I'm sure you know this, that people can beat a lie
Mhm.
detector, manage your uh, responses on a physical level to telling a lie. In other words, if you can become lies to truth, that your body doesn't respond in the normal way with the sensors that they're using, you can beat a lie detector test.
Yeah.
But they started doing some kind of testing with, and I don't know how they did this, I forget, but they were able to connect to that set of neurons in the stomach, and the lie detector test then became unbeatable. So no matter what
Mhm.
happened, your stomach was telling the truth. That brain didn't know how to lie. And
Let,
so
let me
that,
let me let me interject something real quick here,
sure,
because I
sure,
gotta share this story, because like in teaching my kids martial arts, right?
yeah,
I've always taught them that the eyes can lie to you. The shoulders, the hands, they can lie to you. The feet, the legs can lie to you. But the center of a person will never lie.
mm,
That as long as you keep your focus there, that you'll never be misled by any other parts of the body. So there's something else to that.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So yeah, so I just thought, how do we how do we use this part of our being for our benefit instead of it using us for either our benefit or our destruction? So you mentioned, a lot of people make religion appeals to the emotions. Absolutely it does. The basic fear of death, I mean, that primal fear of death and what happens to me after I die, they pray on that every Sunday in churches, right?
Yep.
They stir up that emotion. Every evangelist that's ever been effective at getting conversions has preyed upon the emotions. So that might be a case where the emotions are just being unconsciously driven in a way that's not to your benefit. So I just thought it'd be interesting to explore and talk about how can we use that information that's coming to us from our emotions and connect with that information. Because there's so many people, Derrick, that they're just so in their heads all the time. They don't even know necessarily what they're feeling, and especially guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man. Yeah.
and so you think in your head. I always tell people, you think in your head, you tell the story in your head. The narrative is in your head of what's
Yeah.
going on and what's happening, but you feel in your body. You've never felt an emotion that you didn't feel somewhere in your body. My heart was broken. My heart swelled. I felt like I got kicked in the stomach. I get constricted around my throat and feel like I can't speak because I'm so nervous. You're
Mhm.
experiencing emotions in your body. And so being able to drop out of your uh, stories, the narratives that are going on in your brain, and just to be able to feel in your body and explore that with curiosity and say, what is that? What's that message that's there? How do I feel? Not only how am I thinking about this situation, but how am I feeling about this situation? What do I feel about it? And paying more attention to that, and what kind of benefits that could bring into our lives.
And that's really you hit on something here that I think it's major because I know like in your line of work in clinical work,
Mm-hmm.
you may ask a patient, how does that make you feel,
Mm-hmm.
as a a leading question. How does that make you feel? And then that stimulates some response. And I think that we need to take an inventory of our feelings as well as our thoughts.
Yeah.
And but this goes back to something that it's almost a dead horse, we've beaten it so much.
Right.
Understanding yourself,
Yep.
self-awareness, self-knowledge, because it's impossible, I think, to take an inventory of anything mental, emotional, spiritual, without a basic core or foundation of self-knowledge, self-awareness.
Right.
So how do we put this to work? How do we tap into this? Because again, if we think of the like our gut as a second brain, that means there is wisdom or understanding there
Yeah.
that we need to learn to tap into. And here's another thing too. I think that there's a physical component to this too. That I believe that I think the human being is almost limitless. And when you look at phenomenon like psychic phenomenon or remote viewing or astral projection or ESP or telekinesis, I believe that these are all things, they're Easter eggs
Yeah.
built into each of us,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, if we're able to tap into this emotional core and create some synergy and convergence between our emotions and feelings and our logic and reasoning centers, honestly, what would be the limits? What's the limitation of a person that's fully formed in all of their centers? And so I think that Eastern spirituality has really, they're onto something with chakras, right? Because understanding each one of these chakras and finding out where they're open or where they're blocked,
Right.
it has an immediate and relevant influence on our total being. So to your point, how do we get there? And like I said, the first thing is knowing yourself. Um, I, I was reading something about because I'm resuming my physical fitness journey.
Hmm.
And so there was a coach that was saying that before you get out of bed, you should you should work out first thing in the morning. You should do something physical first thing in the morning. But
Hmm.
before you do anything physical, you have to take an inventory of your body. Take an inventory. How do I feel? How do my joints feel? How do my lungs feel? How does my heart feel? How does my head feel? And then then you as you're doing this, you're kind of going through a meditation exercise. So what you're doing is you're tying your physical being to your non-physical being. You're tying your I forget what you call it, the opposite of autonomic, but that part of your body to your autonomic system. And what you're doing is you're taking stock of everything. You're taking an inventory. But again, if you don't know yourself, that's like if you own a store that sells hoodies, because you have on a hoodie
Yeah.
and you sell hoodies, but you say, okay, I'm going to take inventory of all the athletic shirts that I have.
Yeah.
Well, you're not in the business of athletic shirts. So why would the athletic shirt have any impact on your business? You need to understand what your line of business is first, and each one of us individually have our own line of business. We are a corporation of one, each of
Yeah.
us individually, right? Because and we basically, and this really gets deep because we have our own board of directors, we have our own stakeholders, and we have our own customers. And
Yes.
all of these things are operating within us, right?
Yes.
And in order to make all of this work, if we're going to be a profitable corporation, then we need to understand the relationship between the business and the customer, between
Yep.
management and labor, right, and between our customers and our supply chain. All of these things, and that I think is that's that's the analogy that I use to try to tie all of this together. To try to make myself a more profitable being.
Yeah. I love that metaphor. So I'm gonna leverage that a little bit. There's nothing worse than a CEO who privately takes over a company and then goes into the company that they know nothing about, and they fire all the employees because they just, for whatever reason, and then they start implementing policy on the first day.
Yeah.
That then 2 weeks later they figure out, oh shit, this created a huge mess, and we have to retract this, without even realizing maybe somebody thought through this the 10 years or whatever that they were working there before you bought the company.
Yeah. Somebody posted this
So,
on that social media platform today. It said, I've done some stupid shit in my lifetime, but never once have I poured gasoline on $44 billion
I
and
saw that.
set it
I
on
saw
fire.
that. I mean, so maybe there's a reason you have a blue check mark, and you shouldn't just take it away and then figure out, oh shit, and then adjust your policy right away. I mean, I'm just saying there's nothing worse than that, right? Here's what I mean. Like, nobody wants to work in a corporate structure where they don't listen to the boots on the ground, where they don't listen to the
Exactly.
people that are doing the work and doing the job. So if you want to be profitable and successful and whatever, um, you want to listen. You want to have your board of directors, at least. You want to have some of your employees. I'm big for listening to the boots on the ground, right? Because
Yeah,
how many
absolutely.
companies have you worked for where you had policies just shoved down your throat, and you're like, in the real world, like, it sounded great in a boardroom, it looked good on paper, but in implementation.
But to your point, that the boots on the ground is that emotional
Exactly.
and feeling part of you.
Exactly. So how many of us run our lives though like that CEO that just comes in, thinks, oh, I know what we need, but your gut, like, have you ever done something? I mean, all of us have done something, right? Where you advanced in a course of action, but everything inside you was just like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know about you, Derek, but in my 50 years on this planet, every time I've gone against that, my head was wrong.
Yeah.
The executive branch was the problem.
Kind of like 2 years ago.
Exactly. Like a politician that doesn't listen to their constituents, right? Like so then it behooves you to listen. So if we use the same metaphor, my feelings are important members of the information gathering. They shouldn't be in the executive position. I'm not saying that,
Right.
but you have to take an executive position within your own self, and then you got to listen to all that stuff that's inside of you. And I think that's one of the best ways that we can live holistically and happily and peacefully, is if we're listening. If it doesn't feel good, and I know this drives Christians nuts, if I were to come on here and say, okay, I got a new philosophy of life, if it feels good, do it.
Yep.
And then I would nuance that, say, with respect to your future self.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me nuance it even further with respect to your future self and with respect to those around you, because
Yeah.
I think you should do whatever you want, insofar as you are respecting your future self, and that you're not doing anything to bring any harm to anyone around you.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel good, there's a reason it doesn't feel good, and you should pay attention to that. You shouldn't
Absolutely.
force yourself to do something that doesn't feel good, because all you're doing is inviting internal conflict. And there's so many people that have internal conflict. They have arguments in their head, one part of their brain arguing with the other part of their brain, voices, in their head, talking back and forth to each other and arguing about what's the best thing to do, or get a good inspiration and a good idea. But then this other part shows up. Nah, you ought not do that. And you talk yourself out of it. And most people, it's a process you have to go through. It's a process of internal listening that you have to go through, and sometimes internal conflict resolution, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
most people ignore that. Most people just plow ahead.
Yep.
They either keep doing what they've always done and getting the same results, or they take a new course of action that they're not completely 100% congruent with. And then as they're taking that course of action, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, you've got all this internal conflict again. And then you wonder why you're stressed. You wonder why you're anxious. You wonder why you don't have peace or happiness in your life. It's because we don't take enough time to take the full panorama of all of it in,
right,
before we make a decision to head out on a course of action. And to make it worse, we start listening to other people. See, you'll listen to other people. Now, I'm all for listening to other people. You know that.
Yeah.
I've asked you for advice on different stuff, and I want to weigh people's opinions, but never at the expense of my own inner being. Like, what good does it do me? So this is what we'll do. Derrick, you've got a nice house. You like where you're living. You've got a swimming pool. You got nice cars. Tell me how to be successful. And you might say, not that you would say this, but you might say, well, get in the sales business or the IT business or something like is really lucrative and profitable. And yet there may be parts of me that's like, oh, like I have a terrible relationship with technology. Anybody that's been following me for at least 2 years or knows I have a terrible relationship with technology. So I'm automatically going to be like, yeah, let's try real estate or something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my point is, we don't listen to ourselves, then we listen to so-called experts in a field. And not that you shouldn't weigh expertise. You guys know I'm all about respecting and honoring and taking in expertise as another data point. But I'm not going to let that become the governing data point when all the other data points inside me are saying, no, go this different direction. Otherwise, I'm right back into religion. That's what we did in religion. There were so many times that there were things that were preached or taught, or that I heard, or that even that I taught, that I just didn't feel good about on the inside. But bless God, I'm not listening to my feelings. This is what the Word of God said. This is what the elders board said. This is what the deacon board said. This is what the apostle said. This is what the prophet said. And you ever get one of those prophetic words where it's like everything inside you is just ick, but I'm going to be obedient. That's just my flesh. My flesh doesn't want to do it. But I'm going to bring my flesh into subjection. And all you're doing is exalting outside information without honoring inside information. And I don't believe in that. So I will never, and I'll tell people, if I want advice, I'll tell people, listen, I want your advice because I respect you. You've got knowledge in this area, but I just want you to know, and I'll tell people this, I just want you to know, I'm going to make my own decision. So I don't want this to be an issue if I don't take your advice. Like, I don't want you mad at me and stuff like that. But I want to weigh it. I want to honor it. But at the end of the day, I'm making my own decision. So that saves you. So I'm not, if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to blame you if it doesn't work out. And if my way doesn't work out and I sit back and wish, oh, I wish I would have taken so-and-so's advice, it falls back on me that I'm the one fully in charge, fully in control of my life, and made my own decisions. Anything other than that, to me, is just religion, even if it has God or doesn't have God. It doesn't matter. I'm internalizing external information that's going against my very essence and being and core and feelings, and marching ahead because someone else told me that's how it was supposed to be.
And that's really key, because we'll listen to an external voice and subordinate our own because of it. And one of the things that we fear is the dreaded "I told you so." Right. So it's like when somebody gives us a bit of advice and we don't take it and things go sideways, we're always dreading that this person is going to come back and say, "See, I told you. I'm going somewhere with this." Because I say this to people all the time, that before you can have empathy and compassion for anyone else, you need to have empathy and compassion for yourself. You're going to make good choices and you're going to make bad choices. And that's life, right? So what happens is you get people that tell themselves, "I told you so." And what happens is then they get trapped in analysis paralysis, because now the voices within themselves stifle any decision making. And here's the thing, like let's say if you made a bad decision because your gut instinct was wrong. So what's the first thing that you do is you subordinate your gut instinct. You say, I'm not going to trust my gut. And you shut off an important pathway to decision making. You shut off an important pathway to self-profitability by shutting this down. So what we don't want to do is get in the point where we're just whether it's our thinker or whether it's our feeler, to not shut either one of those things down. That even though you might make a mistake, that doesn't necessarily mean that this or this is flawed. It just means that, okay, you missed one. I mean, even the best sharpshooter misses his or her target periodically. The best decision makers, the best analysts, they miss it. And don't even get me started with the prophetic, right? How often do they miss it? So the thing is, you need to learn to be kind to yourself. And here's the thing, that when you understand how to tie your feelings and your emotions together and place them under the control of the executive, but understand that the executive doesn't know it all sometimes. Sometimes, to your point, Aaron, the boots on the ground have to give some feedback to the executive and say, this is not what I'm seeing where the rubber meets the road. And maybe we need to change our strategy. We need to change our approach a little bit in order to accommodate what we're seeing, at the point of contact. So how do we put this, how do we make this practical? That's the big question. So I'm going to give that to you.
So you got to listen to your feelings. And one of the things is quit telling yourself the stories. So one of the exercises you can do that I have a lot of my clients do is your stories up here. Mm-hmm. You could take any conflict. Any conflict has a victim and a villain. Could be anything you can think of. I'm trying to think. I haven't had a lot of conflict lately, but my boss is picking on me. My boss is making, she's showing favoritism or whatever the case, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll tell myself a story. Oh, I'm so victimized. I gave so much to this company, this organization. They don't appreciate me. Look, they're letting these other people who are backing off do these things, but they're bringing the pip into my world.
Yeah.
And I'm the victim and the villain. That's the story I'm telling myself, right?
Right.
And that's just one example. We have multiple stories that we tell ourselves because that's the only way we can make sense of our lives. We have to play a character. And so I have all these emotions that go with that, right? I have stress, I have anxiety, I have anger, I have, and this stuff's building up inside. So one of the things you can do is disconnect from your story approach for a minute. You can always pick your story up later. You can go back to writing it, telling it, reading it, whatever you want to do, but put the book down. Okay, I'm going to forget about that for a minute, and I'm going to pay attention to what's in my body. Where am I feeling this? Okay, I'm feeling anxious, but where do I feel anxious? Do I feel it up here? And this is where chakras come in. It's really interesting. I've just, anecdotally watched this over the years, but if somebody's feeling really constricted up here, this is your throat chakra. It has to do with speaking your truth. Yeah. And so invariably you can dig into that issue and say, what am I afraid to say? Or if you're feeling it here, then it has to do with your sense of power. I don't feel like I have any power in this situation.
Heart chakra.
Yeah. Or I'm feeling it here. Yeah. Heart chakra. My boundaries have been violated, or relationally, I don't feel right. But if you can disconnect, and what you'll notice is that your emotions will usually do a wave, because most of us are really good at tuning out those emotions and just plowing ahead. So the first time you tune into them, they're usually going to peak a little bit. They're going to go up because you're paying more attention to them. But Derrick, as much as I've done this, maybe 5 minutes tops before it starts to come back down like this, especially if I honor it. Like I always tell people, your emotions are like your spoiled kid. Not spoiled kids. We don't have spoiled kids. Nobody has a spoiled kid. I don't have any spoiled kids at my house. They're like a kid that wants your attention. And so I remember when my kids were younger, dad, 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 dad. And I'm holding on a conversation, especially at church, right? Yeah. Dad, dad, dad. And then dad, dad. And then they're acting out because they're trying to get my attention. So the more I deny them my attention, the louder they become, the more intense they become. And emotions are very much the same way. So when you disconnect from the story and you feel into your body, what am I feeling in my body? Mm-hmm. Then what you'll notice is oftentimes the intensity will rise, but within 2 or 3 minutes, usually it'll crest and come down like a wave. And if you can learn how to ask your emotions almost like another person in the room. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. Okay, this anxious part of me, what is this anxiety about? And then stuff will start popping into your head. And oftentimes it's not what you think. Your brain is telling you something else. Your brain is telling you that victim villain story about your job and the way your boss is treating you and stuff like that. And this emotion is rising up. And this emotion is about, I'm afraid I won't be liked.
Mhm.
I'm bothered that I'm not being liked. So this isn't about my job anymore. This is about the fact that this part of me doesn't like the fact that my boss doesn't like me.
Right.
Uh, those kinds of things. I'll use a practical example. And this is why I think listening to your emotions is so important. I'll give you an example. I don't know why it's popped in my head, but somebody needs to hear it, I think. So I'm just going to share it because I haven't thought about this in years. But many years ago when I was a pastor, we did a lot of social events because we felt like that was an important part. And we did a lot of social events that were disconnected from religious dynamics.
Mhm.
So one of the things we did every year was we rented one of the city pools and had a family pool night, right?
Mhm.
So we rent it for a couple hours and we just have everybody come, we have a picnic and we just swim and have fun and have a great time. And we had booked the biggest pool we have one Olympic sized pool in our city, and we had booked the Olympic sized pool, and it had another deep end where you had diving and you had a water slide and all this cool stuff. And about a week or two before, they contact us and they say, we double booked. And so we're going to have to stick you over at this other pool that was just 25-meter pool with no cool stuff. Right.
Wow.
And I learned early on, confession here, I learned early on how to get my way. Like with companies or corporations or managers. So I was like the original Kevin or whatever they call him, the male version of a Karen. And so I went full on Karen on our Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do this to us at the last minute. I don't care who you double booked with. Why do they get priority? And I don't even remember what it was. I just remember that I got, I think I ended up getting my way. I think I did. But I remember the interaction got so ugly.
I think I ended up.
And I just didn't feel good, Derrick. Even though I got my way, I just didn't feel good. I had like this pit in my stomach that was just felt nasty, right?
Yeah.
So I listened to that and I thought back and I thought, okay, I got my way, but I did it in a way that's not congruent with who I want to be. I wasn't upholding my highest values in the way that I treat people.
Yeah.
And so I made a point of going back to the person that I had the interaction with. And I said this, I said, look, I don't think what you guys did was fair to us or right. I appreciate that you've made the situation right, but I got to tell you that the way I came across is not consistent with who I want to be.
Yeah.
And I had a lapse there. And so I want to ask for your forgiveness, whether you forgive me or not, that's up to you.
Yep.
But I want to, so really what I was doing, on one hand, you could look at it and say, I'm making something right with the person. But at the end of the day, nobody lost their job. I doubt anybody lost a second's sleep over the way I reacted. They're just like, oh, it's just another jerk that we had to deal with. You know what I'm saying? I don't think anybody thought any more about me. So this wasn't about making it right with the other person. This was about making it right within myself, because I had represented myself in a way that was not consistent with my highest values. And until I could make that right, there were just parts of me that were speaking up, like not spoiled kids, but kids that were lacking attention, trying to get dad's attention. And the moment I did that, whether they forgave me or not, whether they thought differently about me or not, whether they thought I was weak because I came back and humbled myself, whatever they thought made no difference. I immediately had peace.
Yep.
And if I hadn't listened to those things inside myself, I would have just, I don't know, popped the antacids and some melatonin and forgot about it in 2 weeks.
But here's the thing: by externally apologizing, what you were doing was resonating your own core values to yourself.
Exactly.
Right? You were making things right with you more so than with them. Hey, Ben Urban is in the green room, man. I'm going to go ahead and let him in.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Ben.
Hey, guys.
What's up, dude?
How are y'all?
Man, living the dream.
It's good to see you.
Yep.
Really good stuff tonight, guys, as always.
Chalk that up to Aaron, man. This is straight up in his wheelhouse, and he's killing it.
It is. Thank you.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, Derrick, because I wanted to jump in, especially for what Aaron was just saying about talking about his kids vying for his attention, and I totally get that. I feel like there's a lot of that in my own house, but it's a strange thing because it's like the eternal struggle. When I'm trying to get their attention, it's really hard to grasp it.
Yep.
Good point.
But
man.
then, like, when they want it, they act like they've been dying to get my attention. But I'll ask them questions. I'll say, like, how was school? What did you learn today? Just trying to get involved, and it's always this kind of, I don't know, or I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But then when it's on my end, they're like, look at this. I want you to see this. You're not paying attention. I was like, okay, I'm reaching out, but then you guys, so it's push and pull.
I always joke with my son Anthony, because like the famous last words of anybody born in Arkansas is, "Hey, watch this."
Hold my beer.
So whenever Anthony said, "Hey, Dad, watch this," I'm like, "Oh shit." Is my son going to die right now?
Dude, I got to tell you guys a story, and I hope nobody gets mad at me for this. But so my kids had to be alone during part of the school year because their school was late starting and we both had to work. So they had to be alone for 4 or 5 hours. And that was scary because first time, 2 little boys, 12 and 11,
alpha
by
males.
themselves. And we come home, we have a trampoline in our backyard, and we also have a second level of our house that has a deck, right?
Oh shit.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. And we come home and the trampoline is pulled down underneath the deck.
Yeah.
And the boys are like taking leaps off the second story of the house, onto the trampoline. Yeah, I see your face there, Ben. Yeah. But my son, my youngest, Josiah, he decides at about the same time to get one of his friends on the phone, and he gets him on FaceTime, right?
Oh my God.
And he shows them he's on the second level, and he's like, I'm about to jump. I'm about to jump.
World star.
I'm looking for instigators in the audience.
And then he jumps from that second level, making his friend think he's got nothing down there to catch him, and then bounces off this trampoline, right? But I was like, dude, you guys, you're going to get social services called on us here. Like, this is not what we need. I don't know why I just thought of that or shared that, but I thought that was funny.
Oh, that's
But
hilarious.
it's true, though. I mean, it's definitely, it's a real struggle. Kids,
Yeah. But you can think about your emotions.
We all have that internal kid inside of us, right?
Yeah.
This, hey, Dad, watch this. Hey, look,
But a lot of your emotions are learned in childhood.
Yep.
Like you're learning your emotions in childhood, and most of us didn't have anybody to help us know what to do. Like if I'm being bullied at school, what do I do with those feelings? We're about solving the situation out here. We never think to address what's going on in here, right? So we don't learn necessarily mature ways of emoting. And so, but those learnings take hold. Just like anything you learn as a kid. I don't have to think about how to walk. I don't have to think about how to go to the bathroom, and everybody's grateful for that.
Yeah.
But there was a time I didn't know how to do that. And so your emotions become immature because they're just learnings. You just learn to respond to certain situations emotionally.
Yeah.
And then it just drops into unconsciousness and it just keeps operating. And
our emotional responses are our primordial communication.
That's true too. For sure.
We had a situation. This is about a month ago, right, where our dog went into Angela and I's bedroom and took a dump right in front of the bed, right?
Oh man.
And so my thing is okay, I didn't, old school, right? Old school was you put the dog's nose in it, you swat him with newspaper and all that. Well, I don't believe in corporal punishment, even for an animal. So, but I did bring him in there, and I did bring him and put his face close to it, and he just rebelled against that. Well, okay, so fast forward until today, right? It's been, the weather's been kind of shitty here. It's been rainy, it's been windy, all of this stuff. And so the dog doesn't like to go out in the rain. And I don't blame him, I don't blame him. So he'll go to my wife and whine when he wants to go outside. But most of the time he's pining for a treat because he knows that if he goes outside and goes to the bathroom, he'll get a treat. Well, anyway, long story short, he took a dump right in the middle of the living room, right in front of the fireplace. I'm like, God damn it, But here's the thing, right? I couldn't get mad at him because the weather has not been good. And for him to go out and pee, that doesn't take a whole lot of time or effort. He just goes out and does his thing. But it's like, if you know anything about dogs, right? Dogs have to kind of sniff around and everything before they can go and take a dump, right? Yep. So it's cold outside, it's windy outside. He's terrified of the outside without someone being with him. So he takes a dump in the living room because that was what was convenient. What I'm getting at is that a lot of times, we do things out of expedience. We do things because they're convenient. And what I'm getting at here is that sometimes we can be hard on ourselves for doing something out of expedience, but then sometimes that is what makes sense at the moment.
Yeah, and we do our business where we feel at home.
Yeah, for example, we humans, we're not just going to take a dump and on the living room floor, obviously. Right. But
unless you're Johnny Depp's wife.
Yeah.
Why I'm thinking about Johnny Depp.
Ex-wife.
I can't remember her name even, but I don't know why I'm thinking about Johnny Depp.
Right? Yeah. So the thing is that I have to have some empathy and compassion for that dog because the environment that he's normally accustomed to is not available to him. So he has to make a logical choice or an emotional choice based on the information that's at his disposal.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we do. We make decisions at the point of our understanding or at the point of our emotional comfort level. Right. And again, you cannot if you learn to beat up on yourself, it becomes easy for you to beat up on others. Right. Point. So the idea is you want to have empathy and compassion for yourself first. Yep. When the mask falls from the overhead, you put the mask on your own face first before assisting others, right? So that was a lesson for me. And so here's the thing: I had steak for lunch. I had a couple of New York strips, right? That I grilled outside, and that was my lunch. Now, normally the dog benefits from that because he gets, the gristle, the scraps, or whatever, right, from strips or the fat from a ribeye or whatever, right? But I didn't give it to him because I didn't want him to feel rewarded for what he did. But I put it off to the side, and I told my wife, I said, okay, later on in the day, you give Dennis the scraps, because if I give him the scraps, I'm rewarding him for what he did, what I thought he shouldn't do. So I'm having empathy and compassion for my dog taking a dump in my living room. Now, I have to say this, right? Because in our living room, we have this beautiful leather sectional. It was custom made, right?
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of other leather furniture, this fucker is 100% leather. The backs, the sides, everything. There's no vinyl in this. So if the dog took a dump on that section, I don't know how much empathy and compassion I would have had for that. But he did it on the floor, so I was like, okay, all right, I can't get mad at you. It's cold outside. It's windy. It's scary. I get it. I get it. So the thing is that because I've learned to have empathy and compassion for me and the mistakes and the bad decisions that I make, I'm able to extend them to my dog. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to get to. Scotch.
Well, Derrick, you made a good point there that stood out to me. Fear can make you lose your inhibitions. Like you jump to conclusions and you do things when you're afraid. It makes you make decisions on the spur of the moment that might not be the best because in your mind, it'll lead to self-preservation.
Yeah. Aaron's turning up.
Yeah.
He's going for the bottom.
I'm going for the bottom. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I tell you, chocolate whiskey is from the devil. Just if you don't believe in the devil, just get some chocolate whiskey.
You know what? Okay,
it'll make you a believer.
Now I'm going to get some tomorrow just because it's from the devil.
I'm telling you, it is the devil's drink. I don't usually buy it because I'm so susceptible to it.
Well, like this is my thing, man. I get in touch with my inner Ron Burgundy here. I like scotch.
Yeah, it's the devil. It really is the devil. And then you can get chocolate whiskey, Derrick, and peanut butter whiskey, and have you a Reese's whiskey.
Oh shit!
See, Halloween all over again.
See, Aaron, you're corrupting me, man. You're corrupting me. Well, people watch this program and they think, man, we're the fucking devil anyway. So
yeah,
that's true.
I might have to bow out because you guys are
affecting me
on a spiritual level. So
get in touch with your inner devil, man.
Oh man,
dude, let me tell you something.
I'm gonna need an exorcist after this. So.
We are the yeast of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Oh damn.
Oh wait, no, we're the opposite of that. Okay.
I think you're sifting the wheat.
Yeah, I'm the tares. I'm the
Here's
tares.
The wheat.
I warned you about. Hey Ben, is that sweet wine? I'm just fucking.
No. It's an IPA, Derrick.
Is it IPA? Okay. Are you forgiving me?
You and your IPAs.
Yeah, me and my IPAs.
Dude.
It's good.
I don't know what my issue is with that. Like I was fine, and then my nieces a couple years ago brought over some craft beer. It was like in a bottle. Like I don't know where they got it, but it was like well, of course it was in a bottle, but it was like in a bottle that you take to someplace.
It wasn't like in a sheep's stomach or anything like that, right?
You're talking about a growler?
I don't know what was in it, but I drank one of those and I was projectile vomiting.
Ooh.
Like projectile vomiting within like 15 or 20 minutes. And ever since then, I can do Bud, I can do Coors, I can do Miller, I can do Michelob, and I can do the local chili beer. And that's about it. Anything outside of that, I'm like,
well, wow. Last night I had Tommy Stewart on Atheist Thursday, and so I was drinking this wheat beer, right? And this is really good stuff. I mean, but I'm like you, Aaron. I have to really be in the mood for an IPA.
Well, it was a really good broadcast too.
What's that?
Your Atheist Thursday. It was a good broadcast.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I mean, Tommy was a great guest. I mean, and I'm excited because and Ben, we got to have you on. You're agnostic, but I'll let you in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you.
I made the cut.
Yeah, if you're agnostic or better, you'll make the cut. Aaron is metaphysical, so he can't get
I'm out.
down with the whole
I'm
atheist
out. I
thing.
got voted off the island.
Well, to be fair, I'm a curious agnostic, so I leave room for metaphysics. It's not like I
No,
cut it out.
I struggle with the term agnostic because I resonate with the Gnostics. And the only reason we have the word agnostic is because of the Gnostics. It's like the A in the Greek
Right.
cancels out the Gnostic part. So,
and there are schools that think that like the Gnostic Christians were the only real ones. So
yeah, I'm kind of that ilk myself.
You know what? Here's the thing. I don't have any issue with people who are spiritual. I don't have issues with people who are metaphysical. I don't, but people who are religious and Gnostic about religion, and when I say Gnostic about religion, I'm not saying like Gnostics. I'm talking about people who say, that this is it. That's what I have an issue with. Because here's the thing: I'm an atheist, but I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't claim to know for sure that this is what it is. All I know is that the God of the Bible isn't.
Yeah. So I want to dovetail on that because I'm agnostic in the sense that we're dealing with stuff that, like you say, Derrick, can't be measured, can't be proven, can't be repeatable. So we're dealing with philosophy. We're dealing with philosophy. So I think we all need to be agnostic in that sense.
But Aaron, I'm going to go ahead and really, pump you up a little bit, right? Because this is the thing that I love and respect about you is that you're looking for that which is tangible, measurable, and repeatable, right? And that's where I think that's the thing that separates, true metaphysics and true mystics from the posers, because hey, I want to be able to understand this so that I can make it work in my life and teach others how to make it work in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's where I think you really excel, Aaron.
Thanks, Derrick. I mean, you challenged me. I think it's okay to put this out here, but you challenged me in a private conversation to do more content.
You should. I mean,
and so I've had to take inventory. Like, what do I really want to share?
And I watched your video and I shared it everywhere.
I saw that. Thank you.
And this past Sunday was glorious. Derrick.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm processing while I'm doing it because I realized, where do I land on some of these things? And so here's where I'm at. And this is subject to change. And I've had a lot of chocolate whiskey, so it's really subject to change. But I think I am a agnostic theist on the left-hand path.
Okay.
I
like that.
That's where I identify myself right now.
Here's where my cutoff point is. I can't get behind any systematic theological concept of a God.
Yeah.
Because for one thing, I don't feel like if there is a transcendent presence that's beyond anything that we can ever comprehend, it would not purposely put itself in a box, which you can just work your way around and completely understand. And that's the arrogance of religion, in that it pretends to be pious and be like, oh, we're beneath this God, and yet seems to know everything about this God.
Let me throw this out here, right? Let me throw this out here because, see, both of you guys are fathers, right? Both of you guys are parents, right? What parent hides themselves from their children?
Damn right, Derrick.
I mean,
that's
clearly we've all rejected the biblical version of who God is. Yeah. So something that's interesting. So there's a group out there called the Monroe Institute. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they've been doing experiments and studies in consciousness and out-of-body experiences and stuff forever, like for a long time. And the CIA actually published a document where they investigated the claims of the Monroe Institute, and they found them credible.
Yeah,
so I find that interesting. You can actually go on their website. My friend Brian Scott did a video where he read the whole paper and talked about it and dialogued with it and stuff. But when you look at the Monroe Institute study of consciousness, this is what they say. This is what they say. They say that everything is consciousness, and that we create through our consciousness realities. But they take it this far. If you're a Mormon and you have Mormon beliefs, when you die, you're going to go to a Mormon heaven.
Collab.
If you're a Christian and you have Christian beliefs, when you die, you're going to go to a Christian heaven. Yep. Because all of these things in their thinking exists in consciousness. Now, what's interesting, one of the things I've really studied and looked at is near-death experiences, right? So I could post tonight a Jewish person who had near-death experiences. When he was in his near-death experience, Jehovah spoke to him and said, follow the way of the Torah. I can post a Hindu person who was atheist, died, went, in their near-death experience, and they were taught to go within and learn the oneness of all things. There are Christians who had near-death experiences and went to hell. There are Christians who had near-death experiences and went to heaven.
Yep.
That's scary.
Well, no, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because that's the funny
scary,
thing.
Where am I going to go when I die? Am I going to go into a black hole of shit? I don't know what the fuck.
I mean,
you know where I'm going? I'm going to the center of the galaxy, and I'm going to become a star. That's where I'm going.
But no, the thing about it is that paradise and perdition are states of mind. I do think that. And I think it's wherever you put yourself, you're going to have that experience, because it seems like more often than not, these near-death experiences that are peer-reviewed seem to be all encompassed by this warm, inviting, compassionate presence.
Yeah.
That they can't ever imagine in this world.
You know what?
It's just so amazing. So then this is very small few people that actually talk about this hellish experience.
No, that's true.
That's I'm thinking true. They're just trying to balance the scales, but they're just horrible at it.
Or they believe that they have so much shame and guilt and whatever that they believe they deserve that.
Can you blame them with all the conditioning they've experienced?
No, but I got to say something, and my wife's going to kill me. I think I might become a Muslim.
Oh, fuck.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
What is the whole 72 virgins thing? That's
infidels.
And I'm going to blame that on the chocolate whiskey. It's the devil.
I don't really believe that, honey.
That sounds a lot more exciting than being a star, Derrick.
I think we're all going to be in Facebook jail after this video.
Star, you're like a life-giving energy. You're helping to.
Fuck that! I want my 70 virgins. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally being comedic. I'm sorry. It got awkward.
So before we go, you want to go through the comments, Aaron, and
sure.
Yeah.
Some of these are comments to comments we made. So like Sandra Whiteley says, absolutely, because that's what is stored in the consciousness and what they believe. So I do think it's possible, just in comment to that, I do think it's possible that our consciousness exists outside the body.
Yep.
And so if we do believe strongly enough that the afterlife contains thus and so, I do believe that we could create out of our own creativity of consciousness, that reality for ourselves. I don't think we get stuck there for eternity. That's just my thought.
God, that would be fucked up, man. If you create hell,
Yeah.
You immediately go to this place of torment. And even if it's not permanent, like you said, Aaron, I mean, even if it's temporary, I mean, like, fuck, really?
Well, but how many people might do that? Like, so the subconscious, the way it works, if you were brought up in a Christian family and you were like, let's say gay, for example, and you got told repeatedly throughout your life you were going to hell because you were gay, and then you live your life as a gay man or a gay woman, and then you die and all that stuff comes to the surface, right? Yeah, it's nasty.
God.
I mean, that's why I think what we're saying is important. I think this conversation about consciousness and the reality of what could or couldn't be after that with religion, I think it's really important.
Dude, I think that's next week's conversation is consciousness. We need to talk about that. We really need to talk about that.
Isn't the paralysis of analysis more like purgatorial though? To a degree, I mean, it seems like it's something that, you know, you're kind of in just a waiting game. You're not really living because you're so caught up in this fear of the future. You're regretting the past, and you don't know where you're at.
I can get that.
It's limbo.
But so that's purgatory here on earth. You know, that basically you have abdicated any hope of happiness in your life because, you know, analysis paralysis has you at the point where you're questioning everything, and that's your point of stasis, right? Ooh, God, that's messy.
It is messy. It's very messy. That's one of the things, honestly, like that led to my deconstruction, because I realized this whole like pray the prayer and then you go to heaven and you're perfected. But what if we bring our issues with us? Like, what if I'm anxious inside and depressed inside, and I enter into the fullness of that after I die, right? Like I enter into the fullness of anxiety and depression. Then it behooves me to work on changing my consciousness while I'm here.
Yeah.
So just,
dude,
that's what I thought. Like Christianity doesn't do that. You just pray the prayer, and there's no pathway. Here's the problem with evangelical Christianity. There's no pathway for real transformation. They offer you pie in the sky kind of stuff. Invite Jesus into your heart. You'll be a new person, new creation. Get baptized
in the sky.
Spirit. Yeah. But what I'm saying is there's no pathway for transformation.
Right.
Like at least yoga provides you with the working through the chakras and stuff. It's about personal transformation. Christianity,
Hinduism gives you the path of reincarnation, right?
Right. That's more just. And that's what I was thinking about. Like it's more just for me to pay for temporal sins in a next life than to pay for temporal sins for all eternity. It just makes no sense. It's total. Anyway.
Well, on my
Terran Jerome Harris is saying, he said, Ben Urban, you're going to need prayer after hanging out with these guys.
I was just going to read that, Derrick. What were you saying?
My impression
of purgatory, Ben.
My impression of reincarnation has nothing to do with like you're going to be punished so much. And maybe this is just me like not wanting to deal with that. But I think it has more to do with personal maturity. Like maybe you experience multiple lives so that you become a better version of you every time around. Like you learn from that past mistake. Like that's why we have deja vu. Like these are experiences that tell us, well, maybe we shouldn't have done it this way. I feel like I've been here before. And I didn't make the right choice the last time, and I need to make it better. Maybe that's what reincarnation is. It's like and over again where you experience the same thing, but you deal with it in a better way, and you grow.
Let me jump in there because Pascal's wager. You guys are familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
So you're better off going the Christian way, because if Derrick, you're right, then I just go blackout when I die or whatever. I don't know what you think about the afterlife, but most atheists,
I like that though. That's good.
And Pascal's wager was, so I'm going to avoid hell at all costs. But I flipped that on its head with somebody one time, and I said, what if your mission in this life is to deconstruct from religion and Christianity? And how many times have you done this? How many times have you been a priest or a nun or born in a fundamentalist thing? Maybe next time you're going to be born fundamentalist in the middle of Tehran or something. Like maybe you're like that thing can work both ways. Like I'm recycling, this same
You know,
experience, and I keep getting so close to making the decision, and I don't make it, and then boom, I got to go do it again. That's still Costco wager.
my wife has one of the best reconstruction or reincarnation theories that I've ever encountered, because we're parents, and so we take our kids to amusement parks, right? And they get on a ride, and after they get off the ride, they're like, "Ooh, daddy, 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 mommy, 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 I want to ride again. I want to ride again." Right? Or, "Ooh, I really didn't like that ride. I want to go to the next ride."
Yeah, I like that.
Right? And so when she said that, that resonated so profoundly with me. What if we go through this and we say, okay, I want to go through this again. I want to ride this ride again. I didn't fully experience it. I didn't get the whole sensation. I want to do it again. Or you say, man, fuck that. That was really because let me explain something, like take you back into my childhood. I did not like haunted house rides.
Hmm.
And so once I rode a haunted house ride, I was done. I didn't need to do that anymore. I was like, well, that was cool. That was fine. I don't need to do that anymore. And then but the like the rodeo, like where you're in this twirling thing, and then it stands up on the side and you're pinned to the to the wall by centrifugal force. Okay, that I liked, right? So what if this is just like a grand amusement park ride for our spirits?
Yeah, well, let me just make sure I'm getting this. Maybe to some degree, the explanation here is that we're connecting entertainment and like what we do with it.
Yeah.
Whether we're always looking for something new or we like to return to the things we know. Is this like an analogy for tradition versus brand new experience and only running one way or the other? I mean, is it a fork in the road, or is it like a mix and match? Can you
all of the above. All of the above.
Okay.
That it could be, okay, I have comfort with this particular thing, and so I'm going to do this repeatedly because this gave me comfort, this gave me peace, right? Or you could be a voyeur, you could be a thrill seeker, and you say, okay, this was great, what's the next thing? So I think that this could fork many different ways, to your point, Ben.
Shannon Morris says this. I like this. She said, yep, religion taught me my feelings don't matter. I never had any sort of spiritual experience until I allowed myself to feel. I will not ever disregard my feelings ever again. I took several months to have any sort of control at all.
Yeah. I really think that the religion, let me just say it this way, just keep it simple. Religion is the biggest mind fuck, right? Because it basically says, okay, deny what it is that gives you pleasure, deny whatever it is that makes you happy, that your goal in life is to somehow please this imaginary sky wizard, right? And it has nothing to do with you being happy. So what happens is that you're going through these things, and you're saying, well, is this a life that's pleasing to God?
Yep. I'm going to jump on that, Derek.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Jump on that, because what you just said just nailed it for me. I mean, it's a real simple slogan. Religion is basically thinking you're right as long as you think you're wrong. Basically, you were saying I'm only right if I believe I'm wrong. This God is the only right one, and the rest of us are wrong, and we better get on board with this God. And that's all it is.
Dude.
Yeah, really.
That's what that's what I got from that. And that was so much like, wow.
Yeah, that's profound.
That's incredible.
You need to do a post on that.
Well, okay. But I
I'm
give
just
it credit to
saying, like,
Derrick, because
I
what
would
he
love to
said,
hear
I
you
mean,
expand on that idea. Is all I'm saying. I would love to hear you expand on that idea because that's profound.
it
No,
is. It's sad because it's really
that's
sad.
a whole show all by itself.
It is. For sure.
No, because this brings up something else that I remember. Derrick posted. It was, I think it was a meme about how, like, when religion gives you the impression that you need to be saved by this God, and then I responded because, like, in that moment, I read the meme and I saw the picture that goes with it, and it's more about, like, you're saving this God by throwing your own life away.
Right.
It's really the reverse. That's the twist in the plot.
Yeah.
Is that you're not being saved by religion. You were saving religion by giving your own life up.
Dude, God, you guys are killing me.
And that's, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, you need to write some post about that, Ben.
Yeah,
I did. I think I already did write about it, but
you do? I'm not on Facebook much. I gotta be
no,
honest.
it's okay. It's all right. I probably wasn't as straightforward with it in the actual post, but like, you had to kind of read through it, or, you know, kind of.
Dude, that's good stuff. That's some thought-provoking stuff right there. I'm gonna steal some of that. It's
scary provoking stuff because I mean think about how many people do it. They're believing that, like, in this next life I'm getting a deal because this God died for me, but it's like, really?
But
you're dying this whole life, that's all you know.
Ben,
you're giving it all up for this God you don't even see or hear or smell or taste or touch. You have no idea about this God.
But watch this, Ben. Is God saving you, or are you saving God?
Right. That's what I'm saying, Derrick. You got it. Boom. I mean, it's just it's
dying. But listen, you're dying to save that God, because there isn't salvation in the Bible. Crucify yourself. I'm crucified with Christ. You know, mortify your flesh.
The streams here.
Lose your life that you might gain it. Like you're giving up your life, surrender to this totalitarian. I mean, let's think about it. Do we want a government? Now, some people do, but do we want a government in the United States that is totalitarian?
Oh, fuck.
It tells you how to act, how to think, who to sleep with, how to feel, and is spying on you the entire time. I mean, really, honestly, George Orwell is describing in 1984 the God of the Bible.
Yeah. Okay, but this is the thing, Aaron. This is shit has been going on for a while anyway, because if you just go online and you see these articles where, what should a Christian do? What should a Christian say? What should a Christian think? Like, is it okay for a Christian to do this? Is it okay for a Christian to do that?
WWJD, man.
It's like, it's all training. There is no, like, what do you think? Do you feel about this? What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? How do you know?
So we would never.
It doesn't matter. It's what they say. What this article says. Is it okay because this book said it's okay?
Most of us are outside the MAGA world. Do not want a totalitarian government telling us what to do. I mean, who was it? I saw Ben Shapiro. Or no, it was Nick Fuentes. I don't know if you guys know who he is. But he was on TikTok or Twitter or something saying it's time for a dictatorship. We need a dictator in this country to put everything in order and everything in line. And so, but most of us outside that mentality, that's not white supremacy and white Christian nationalism and all that stuff, we don't want that, right? We want our freedom. Isn't that what this country is built on? We want our freedom. We're all created.
That was the idea. Yeah.
If we're created equal, there's no submission. We're all equal. There's no submission. There's no hierarchy, that kind of stuff, right? So I think a lot of us resonate with that ideal, but yet in Christianity, we're told to give all that up for this totalitarian universal governor that's going to come in and tell you what to say, what to think, what to feel, regardless of you. Like, I don't give a shit about you. You're going to conform to my image, like it or not. If you don't conform to my image, I'm going to come and burn you with eternal conscious torment for all eternity. And anyway, all right.
Because it's a God of love, Aaron. It's a God of love.
I love you, but I almost did this, and I'm thinking about getting on TikTok.
You don't know this God like I do.
let me run this past you guys. I'm thinking about getting on TikTok for my first TikTok video because somebody told me today, like, your first one is crucial because it can get you followers and all that stuff. So you got to pick a really good one.
You need to get on TikTok, Aaron.
But what if I did this? Guys, I just have to tell you, I was in an abusive relationship. I was with a person that wanted to tell me how to think, wanted to tell me how to feel. If anything ever went wrong in the relationship, it was never the other person's fault. It was always my fault. Right. And I had to grovel and ask for forgiveness no matter what happened. And if I didn't think and talk and act like this person wanted me to think, talk, and act, they threatened to punish me. And they threatened to kill my kids. They threatened to cause all kind of torment with me. And I finally broke up after 30 years in this toxic relationship. Not quite 30, but after 25 years in this toxic relationship, I finally broke up with this abuser. And you know who this abuser was? It was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
All right. Just a thought I'm having.
No, it's a good thought. I mean, like this is the thing that I've been saying to people is that, I was in this for 30 years. I was in ministry for 30 years. I was in deep theological study for 30 years. I was a pastor, an associate pastor. I was for 30 years. I was a bishop for 30 years, all these things. And the reality is that all of this was actually designed not just to keep me in bondage, but to teach me how to put other people in bondage. In other words, it's not just making me a better slave, it's teaching me how to make slaves. And that's I can't stress this enough, because let me say this. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to shut up. Is that Aaron, one of the things that you excel in is prompting people to think about what they believe.
Yeah.
And so this ties back into our discussion about, okay, what do we feel versus what do we think? And so what you've done in your videos, in your teachings, is prompt people to think about what they feel. Now, this is important. Everybody needs to listen to this. Everybody who's watching needs to listen to this, because you have to think. In other words, you have to govern. You have to because here's the thing. If you don't have governance, you have anarchy.
Yeah.
And so what you've done, Aaron, is you prompt people to think about what they believe. In other words, to have governance over feelings. And it's not wrong to have feelings, but it is wrong to let feelings dictate what it is that we do. So basically, you have to say, okay, I'm going to execute an executive order over what I'm feeling. and so that executive decision is going to determine what it is that I feel is going to impact my life. If that makes sense.
It does. And what I would say is that our feelings are informers, they're messages, they're counselors. They're not necessarily supposed to be dictators, for sure. Because if you like, I think our society is heavily tilted towards logic, reason, that kind of stuff. And I think we miss out because we don't.
Well,
feel
I disagree. I'll disagree with you on that because I think
Okay.
that our society is dictated by what we feel, right? That our feelings are dictating more of our decisions, and I think that it should be the other way around. That we should make our thinker guide our feeler.
So
go ahead.
let me address that. Is it possible that both can be true at the same time?
Absolutely.
That maybe what's missing, what I see just in my experience, is the balance. You have people that are either really logic leaning or you have people that are really emotional leaning. But we have, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's a struggle to find the balance between balancing out what my logical mind is telling me and what my emotional mind is telling me, and using both of those equally to have an executive mind to then make a decision going forward that's balancing both. So, because I agree with you, Derrick. Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, yeah, shit, yeah, people are doing stuff totally out of emotions. Emotions are out of control, and people are driving off the rails. But at the same time, I can see how leaning like at the expense of emotions, and because this is a clientele I deal with,
Yeah.
they're like, a lot of them are just in their heads because they don't like what they're feeling, and so they don't want to feel it. Most substance abusers use substances not to have a good time like we're doing tonight. They use substances to avoid what they're feeling.
Yeah.
So I think both can be true at the same time. And I guess what I'm advocating for is that we find balance in our lives between logic and emotion, and somehow bringing those both together so that we can find a middle path, if you will, that's not in one extreme or the other.
No, and that is absolutely where we need to be. I mean, as a society, as a global corporate being, and also as an individual being, that we need to find the happy medium between our thinker and our feeler.
Yeah.
But that's spot on.
Well,
gentlemen, I'm going to have to bow out. Go ahead, Ben. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yep.
okay. Well,
Give Ben the last word.
I was just going to say that traditionalism is selective individualism, because it's basically, as long as it sticks with like one major mindset, it's fine. Somebody at the top, it's like a hierarchy thing where like one individual had an idea and then it kind of spurred off into,
I get what you're saying now.
a groupthink mentality.
I get what you're saying now.
Okay, that's what traditionalism is. And that's why we can't have our own emotions, because we have to fall into one camp.
Dude, you're throwing grenades tonight. Jeez, oh Pete, I had to sit there and process that for a minute. Yeah, that makes sense. But it took me a minute.
It did. So, Aaron, I'm going to kick it over to you to close, and we're going to get out of here.
You want to give our guest of honor an opportunity to say the benediction.
Oh, God.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
Okay. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace and hair grease. And I love these two guys. Thank you so much.
Love you too, Ben. Love you, Derrick.
You too, Ben. All right.